Welcome to Dweller of the Dark. We are a channel honoring the yellowed and blackened bones of many prominent authors. We will be digging up several obscure, strange, and forgotten authors who influenced many of the great horror, science fiction, and fantasy writers today. More tales of the horrifying, obscure, strange, and forgotten are climbing out of the tombs. Subscribe, comment, like, donate, or I'll send Thaddeus Forge to steal your heathen soul. Unknown horror masters, send us ghoulish delights for the Skull and Bones collection. Your pound of writer's flesh will continue to feed our ghouls for now. Books, websites, podcasts, in the links below. Children of Horror, Legion of Ghouls. Tonight, on this cold winter evening, as the winds howl off the mountains, we dedicate Manly Wade Wellman's terrifying Bigfoot or Dogman tale, take your pick. Yare, to Legion Master ARW CWB, the Rabid Skinwalker Thomas Swafford, the ghastly ghoul David Stevens, and the creature that gives river monsters nightmares, Sharky Sharkums. Thanks for your everlasting support. And to all you creatures of the darkness, keep your life fires burning brightly and eternal. Yare, by Manly Wade Wellman. They were four in the last gray of evening, by the wind-blown coals of the fire, with utensils propped ready. Trees tufted this slope below Black Ham Mountain, with grassy stretches between. Young Stryker felt privileged to be there. He let the others study his flowing sandy hair and his patched jeans. "This here is Stryker, the feller I said I'd fetch," Pope Jendel introduced him when they arrived. "Hal, shake hands with Seth Worley, and with this here beardy one. He's Reed Luftbrew. He makes a good distill, a blockade, and looks to me he fetched on some in a jug. Seth and Reed, Hal's a lowlander who wants to see how we do things up here in the mountains." "Such as this fox hunt," amplified Stryker. "I've heard about how you hunt foxes, but it's better to see a thing done than to hear about it." "True word was ne'er spoke," approved Seth Worley, lean as a hunting knife and as ready looking with his black hair and plowshare jaw. Jendel was the smallest man there, but hard-knit, shrewd about his horsey face, with broad hands that were wise with guns, tools, and especially with a banjo. Luftbrew was the oldest, with thinning gray hair, a bush of beard, mustaches that curled like buffalo horns. They sat on square chunks of rock, rough-clad, good-humored. All had brought guns, but Stryker, these were laid carefully within quick reach of hands. Tied to nearby roots strained half a dozen dogs. All but one were brown-blotched hounds. The exception was of a Scandinavian breed, heavy-furred, with ears that stood up expectantly. "Them dogs is ready to go," declared Worley, "and I aim to hark at them running something down tonight." He arranged the joints of 2 chickens in a skillet above the coals. Pope Jendel stirred meal and water and salt into another skillet for pone. Luftbrew unstoppered his jug. Each drank in turn, with the jug draped on a forearm. "Good," Stryker praised the sharp tang of the liquor. "Better'n the government whiskey," said Luftbrew. "Pure as spring water. Not touched it but the wood of the keg and the copper of the steel and the clay of the jug." Stryker studied the rock on which he sat. "It looks as if a house was built here once." "Long years back," nodded Jendel above the pone. "Fella they called Yare lived here. His house is gone, and so's he. I don't recollect him. He was before my time. What kind of name is Yare? Wondered Stryker. It's only a nickname, I reckon, said Jendel. I don't know his true name. Folks just called him Yare. I was a young chap when Yare was a-using round here abouts, contributed Luftbrook, the jug in his lap. He come from somewheres outland. He allowed he loved the animals and hated the hunters. How did that suit the people? Asked Stryker, who was no enthusiastic huntsman himself. They fussed with him, and he fussed with them, replied Luftbrook. He had powers from somewhere, I heard say. Could fetch down a rain by a singing a certain song. Could kill a crop in the field if so happened he didn't like the feller who'd planted it. My old daddy done told me about him, elaborated Jendel above his cooking. If you killed a deer, he'd set his big old handprint in blood onto your door, and the blood wouldn't dry, would drip and drip for days. I've heard that same thing, said Warley, shaking dark powder into the chicken gravy. This ain't no poison spell, boys. Just some instant coffee. It goes good that way. Well, what you say this Yare is dead, said Stryker. So folks say, said Luftbrook. Me, I ain't ne'er yet heard tell where his grave could have been dug. Jendel took knife and fork and cautiously turned the cake of pone in his skillet. Ne'er about time to set them dogs on, he said. I'll do that, volunteered Warley, rising and unsnapping the leashes from the collars. He walked a few steps with the dogs until they bunched and sniffed the ground attentively. Then they sprang away, noses to earth. They ran towards where, about the distant hunch of Blackened Mountain, rose a pale melon of a moon. The men watched them. We're near about ready to eat, said Jendel at length. He cut wedges of pone and slid them on to paper plates. Warley forked on juicy pieces of chicken. Luftbrook passed out iron knives and forks. Stryker bit into his chicken. It was as savory as Warley had promised. Away in the dimness, a dog bayed tremulously, musically. That there's Trump, Jendel informed them. I'd know him amongst 1,000. Don't you follow them? Stryker suggested. Nar a step, son, said Luftbrook, spooning gravy on his pone. Not this here bunch of smart dogs. We sit and hark at them a-singing, and directly they fetch what they're after back to us here, close to where it wants to hold up. I hear tell the lowlands hunters ride after a fox with red coats on, said Jendel. A sight of trouble to do that. Another dog's voice pealed like a bell. That's my gift, Warley told them. When he talks up that way, the trail's hot. They're a good piece off from here already. And they'll fetch him back, predicted Luftbrook, gnawing at a drumstick. Stryker ate pone and gravy. What you said about that man, Yare, is interesting, he prompted. I know you have, grinned Jendel. You enjoy to hear about haints and witches and all like that. You say he lived here? Right where we are now? His house got burnt off. These here very stones, said Luftbrook. Why? asked Stryker. Folks didn't much like Yare. They watched Stryker and he smiled. As Jendel had said, he liked this sort of story, here in this sort of place, at this time of the night, with the dogs baying at a distance. Why didn't they like him? He asked, because they waited for him to ask it. Well, he fussed with folks about hunting, said Lufbrook between mouthfuls. He loved animals, another sight better than folks. Wild animals, that is. Yare didn't value cows or chickens or hogs. Said they was tame, deserved to die. Folks figured he stole such things at night and ate them up. But he hated deer killing, coon killing, even fish catching. Did he have any family? Asked Stryker. A wife. Their girl would have looked at him, said Lufbrook. Harry, the way he was. How Harry was that? All over, replied Lufbrook. Not just a beard like mine. His face was all hair, even the nose. The 1-2 times I seen him. And his arms, his hands are sticking out of his old clothes. They was hairy too, like on a bear or a wildcat. Dark hair, no shine to it. Pure down ugly to look at. Lufbrook bit into the drumstick. Better off dead, if he is dead. He'd have to be better than 100 by now, said Jendel. My old granddaddy lived past 100, Worley said. Walked a couple miles a-gathering walnuts the morning of the day he died. And Yare was long and tall, resumed Lufbrook. Must have been near 7 feet, with long arms they liked to drag on the ground. Stryker was silent, trying to visualize such a figure. Jendel ate chicken and pone. Like what I say, I wasn't round here when he was, he said. But a heap of folks said Yare wasn't true human blood. He'd been born of some kind of devil blood. He looked devilish enough, endorsed Lufbrook. And cut up devilish enough, scared folks, maybe even killed a couple of fellers. I heard tell that a couple of hunter ne'er come home from time to time, nodded Worley. Nobody found their bodies. Nobody found Yare's body, said Lufbrook. Remotely, the dogs lifted their voices together like a choir. They're sure enough onto something, said Jendel. They're trying now to catch up on it. They finished eating to the remote music. Jendel threw scraps into the fire, which crackled hungrily. Lufbrook passed the jug again. The moon soared well above Black Ham Mountain. Now, hark at them dogs, said Worley. The chorus lifted far off to one side, as though the pack were following a trail along the slope. Joy was in the voices and deadly intent. They reckon they're getting close, decided Worley. Soon as they can see what they're after, they'll purely get a move on. The clarion voices rang together, then all died out but one. Tromp, Jendel identified it. He must be leading the way just now. Those cries grew fainter. They're heading away after it, but they'll fetch it, sure enough, back here, said Lufbrook confidently. Somebody want another wet out of this here jug? It went the rounds, Now, said Stryker, what about the question of whether this Yare is dead or not?
Oh, hell,
said Worley, wiping his mouth.
You know how some folks are a-talking. They'll tell you that their corn dies down with a blight, or their dogs go mad and have to be shot, and they figure Yare's got something to do with it. Or they see something at the window and get pestered about that. I've heard such stuff as that,
chimed in Jendel.
How if he comes up and looks in at your window, somebody in your family dies.
Do you hold with that, Poke? Inquired Luftbrook.
Nair said I did, but I know folks that does.
Worley drank again.
All right,
he addressed Stryker.
We'ns been a-telling you tales. It's your turn now. Tell us some of these here things Poke says you seen and done. Do that thing, Hal,
encouraged Jendel. Stryker did so, somewhat hesitantly. He told of how he had managed to destroy an evil spirit that haunted an ancient stage house on a half-forgotten road, and of how he had managed to get into a remote cabin literally besieged by evil, cunning trees, and then had managed to get out again. As he spoke, he watched his companions. They acted as though they were weighing every word he spoke.
Shoo,
said Jendel at last.
You done more such things than e'er one of us has, Hal. And the doing of it must have sure enough done something for you.
Remotely, the dogs bayed on their resolute quest. What do you mean by that? Stryker demanded.
You been up against Haints and all like that. You whooped them. That means you found out how.
I don't see that I have, said Stryker, mystified. Like when you're in a war, offered Luftbrook. They train you. They give you a gun, call you a soldier. Only you ain't no such thing, no soldier, till you been in where the shooting is, and seen the monkey show, so to speak it. The dogs sang to them again, far away there somewhere. They sounded more excited, less light-hearted.
Hark at them,
spoke up Worley.
They could have caught a glimpse of what they want to catch up with.
A series of half-screaming yelps.
Old Trump are telling the others he'll lead,
Jendel said approvingly. Son, said Luftbrook to Stryker, his voice weighty. What you tell us gives me the thought you're what we've been a-needin' here in the Black Ham neighborhood.
Me?
Stryker half cried out. You done been a-studying these things, said Luftbrook. You can figure what to do in some cases. The fire flickered there among them, lighting the faces that looked at Stryker. Jendel put wood on the blaze. It fought briefly with the fuel and set up tongues of flame, yellow as butter. The dogs sang to them again. They sounded nearer by now. What does all this have to do with fox hunting? Stryker asked. Fox hunting, said Luftbrook after him.
Who said aught about foxes?
Inquired Worley. Why, Stryker stammered. Why, I came out here with Poke because you were going to hunt a fox.
I never said pea turkey to you about foxes, said Poke solemnly. Back yonder at my place, I said we were bringing out our dogs here tonight. And did you relish to come along?
Are you having some kind of fun with me? Challenged Stryker, half angrily.
No, Hal.
Jendel's voice was patient.
I might could have fooled you up a tad, but we're dead serious about this. On account of them strange things you narrated to us. We'd had the word on you about them before now. Them witches and haints and them,
added Warley.
and you are being able to do something about them if they come a-pestering you.
Stryker stared at them, from one solemn face to another. Well, he said slowly, I've had some unusual experiences. I didn't think you'd believe them. We believe, said Lufbrook. We come out here to believe. Look, son. And his beard jutted emphatically. That's why we had Pope to fetch you out with us tonight. I don't get it, groaned Stryker, fidgeting on his rock.
Ain't it a natural fact that if a man's had them experiences you say you had,
said Jendel,
and up against such things and made out to handle them some way, he's got a power, ain't he? What Pope means,
said Warley from his own rock,
he can do away with such things.
That's the old supposition, admitted Stryker, feeling a chill in his stomach.
Then look, Hal,
urged Jendel.
Hark at me good. It ain't no fox that we come out here tonight to have the dogs run.
In God's name, what is it then?
Shoo,
said Jendel.
We been a-talking about that. It's Yare. We fetched them out after.
The dogs bayed, and the sound of baying was stronger. It was nearer. Stryker jumped to his feet. If this is a joke, he began.
If it was a joke, it'd be a plumb foolish one, said Jendel. It ain't nary joke, Hal. We mean the last mumbling word of it.
They sat on those rocks that once had held up a house, sat like a panel of judges passing sentence on him. The moonlight picked out their faces.
We come out here to track up on Yare once for all,
said Jendel,
to stop what he does hereabouts, and you're the one is a-going to stop it for us.
You're all out of your heads, cried Stryker. If that's a fact, said Lufbrook, you'll have you the chance to find out directly, because they're running Yare in here to us like a fox to his hole. The voices of the pack rose louder, louder, building a crescendo.
They can see him now,
said Warley expertly.
They're running him fast. And he wants to hold up right where we are,
said Jendel.
Where he used to live. Hal, I said it's up to you.
Up to you, son, said Lufbrook, as though he pronounced a benediction. The excited clamor of the chase grew louder. Across open ground, towards them came something swift as a shadow. It was big and black. Stryker saw as he faced towards it. A bear or a midnight bull would be that size. The dogs thronged after it, leaping to close in. The others had risen, their rifles in their hands. Stryker, weaponless, snatched a pole from the stack of firewood. It was perhaps 4 feet long, sharpened to a rough point. It might help in a fight. A fight! His blood stirred at the thought. He stepped away from the fire. The ground seemed to quake under him. Whatever the something was, it had come near enough to see. It came swiftly, at a crouch, huddled and huge. Its long forelimbs swept like shaggy wings close to the ground. Suddenly it rose erect in front of him. It loomed like a rearing horse. It plunged uncouthly against the night sky, those great shaggy arms outflung. Stars winked around it. He wondered why nobody fired, and it occurred to him that shots might not hurt it. It closed in. Rake-like paws swooped at him. The moonlight touched what must be a face higher up, dark and tufted, except for pale crumbs of eyes, so close set that they almost merged. Jagged picket rows of teeth. Then the dogs were upon its bushy flanks. It screamed deafeningly and floundered back from Stryker, its paws slapping right and left. He caught a pale shimmer through the fur on one arm, a glint as of ivory. A dog yelped in agony as it flew through the air like a blown leaf. The grotesque hugeness shook itself free from the pack and clumped toward Stryker again. A wave of foul stench smote his nostrils, so overwhelming that he tottered as at a blow. The shaggy shape rose against the sky. The coat of hair rippled. He had another glimpse of streaky pallor, like a row of naked ribs. Desperately, he swung the pole with both hands. The blow rang where it struck, as though on a dulled gong. The creature did not even flinch under the impact. It clawed for him. His shirt ripped, and he threw himself backwards and fell head over heels. As he rolled over and came up on one knee, it towered above him again. It hunched great shoulders, bannered with black hair. It stunk so strongly that Stryker's eyes swam. The talons scooped for him. He whirled the pointed pole in his hands, sharp end forward. He jabbed frantically, and the murky bulk dodged away. The dog snarled and yelped and danced all around. Yare! He cried its name at it, and it knew its name. It heaved its shoulders and snarled back at him. Who was Yare? What had Yare become? This floundering, looming entity, wing-armed, talon-fingered, was grown out of Yare, who had loved the wild, had hated tame mankind. It wanted to fight. It must be fought. This dark blotch in the dancing glow of the moon. Somehow, he got the pole in position. Again he jabbed, trying without real hope to keep the murky bulk away. He saw the shaggy face open up with teeth like a monstrous skull. It slammed itself at him. His pointed pole struck into something, as into earth. Above his head rang a deafening scream of startled pain. The stench welled around him like a foul torrent. The ramming force of his thrust had brought him to his feet again. He surged forward with the pole. The giant shadow almost enveloped him. Then abruptly, it gave back. With all his summoned strength, he drove the pole in and in. It had floundered down. It sprawled and thrashed there. A paw raked upward at him. He felt the sting of talons on his cheek. Leaning all his weight on the pole, he felt it strike into something other than what he had transfixed into earth, pinning the shape there like a gigantic insect upon a card. His mind churned within him, and he staggered away and slammed to the grass. He dreamed horribly of something. His senses returned to him furtively, as though they were not quite sure that they should come back. Voices chattered. Then he felt hands upon him. He blinked his eyes, and he could see. Jendel was on one side of him, helping him to his feet. Warley came up on the other, an arm around him.
Hey, sure enough gouged you,
Jendel babbled.
Looks like as if a knife come on your cheek. Let me have that there jug, Reed.
Luftbrug passed it to Jendel, who sloshed it at Stryker's face. The liquor stung sharply and helped clear his head. He touched his face timidly. It was wet with blood, with the whiskey. "None of you got into the fight," Stryker said. "None of us could have done aught." Lufbrook replied, "It was up to you."
Got a clean handkerchief?
Worley asked, his hands at Stryker's pockets.
Here you are. Hold it there. It'll staunch up the blood.
Stryker wadded the handkerchief against the wound. "What happened? What happened?" Lufbrook echoed him. "You done what we fetched you here to do. You finished Yare off." Stryker looked at Jendel for some sort of enlightenment.
Yonder he lies.
Jendel pointed.
When you got up against him with just a stick, we wondered ourselves if things hadn't gone against us. But you stuck right through where he was biggest, spiked him to the ground. No, Hal, don't go over yonder.
"He's dead," said Worley. "Dead all the way through," amplified Lufbrook. "All the way back along them years. He stinks rotten." Stryker gazed. The great shadowy form lay motionless in the soft moonlight. Round it capered the dogs, weaving a pattern. They did not venture too near. "He appears like to be just bones inside his skin," said Lufbrook. "Not even them dogs won't air part of him."
He done slapped my gift clean out of this life,
mumbled Worley miserably.
Crushed him like a duck egg.
"Right there is too bad, Seth." Lufbrook comforted him. "I knew you valued that there dog all right much. Thought the world of him. Too bad it happened." All of them walked away from the patterned rocks, the motionless fallen bulk of what had been something called Yare. "You know, fellers," said Lufbrook, "that there pole that Hal Stryker took into the fight with him, it was an ash pole." "Ash pole?" Stryker echoed him tonelessly. "Sure thing, ash. I've talked to old Injun fellers round here. They used to allow ash was something you could use to fight evil spirits with. It must have done its part just now." Stryker mopped his bloody, sweaty face. Wearily he walked along with the others. The dogs followed them, all but the one that lay limply apart from that larger dead mass. "What shall we do with the body?" Stryker asked all three of them at once.
"Hell,"
said Jendel.
"we won't do aught with it."
"Well, just leave it where it is," seconded Lufbrook. Already, they were a considerable distance from where those things had happened. They quickened their feet. They headed towards where a tiny point of radiance made a token of a cabin in the night. Thank you for listening. Have a great night.